We are live right after AEW Dynamite. My name is Ango. Tonight I am joined by Billy TKO on YouTube. Billy.
Ango,
Billy.
what are we doing?
Billy. This was the best AEW Dynamite episode of the year.
Ango, I would have to agree. This was a
But,
fantastic AEW.
all right, we've been trolling all week. You know, every episode's the best of the year. I think
Yeah.
everybody gets it. This was the best AEW Dynamite, even including 2023. Yeah. This episode, if this was in 2023, this would have been the best episode of 2023.
Oh. Yeah?
Bet you didn't expect that, buddy.
No, you swerved me.
Swerve when I drive. Bro, I'm telling you right now, I swear, we're definitely going to talk about it. So shout out to everybody joining us. But yeah, this was a great episode of Dynamite. I enjoyed last week. I still think there's a couple flaws this week. I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to be wondering why I think this was the best episode that we've seen in over a year, not just 2024. But dude, I actually really enjoyed it, and there's a lot of reasons for it.
Okay.
But yeah, today we saw the debut of Deonna Purrazzo. She's officially all elite. We saw Hangman and Swerve 3 being planted, which I thought that was a great ending to tonight's episode.
Yep.
And quite honestly, there's some things we'll definitely talk about the Undisputed Kingdom. But I feel like there's been a lot of chit chat about restoring the feeling. And restoring the feeling is obviously in regards to AEW kind of getting back to its vision. And I felt like tonight was a good mixture of what wrestling should be. Obviously, you got to progress stories and evolve characters. And then you also got to have great matches, which I think I don't think I've ever been. I don't think anybody will ever find a clip of me talking about how AEW has bad wrestling matches. You might get them from time to time, but they're notorious for having great matches. And I thought we got that tonight. So overall, I mean, before we head to the chat and the super chats, guys, if you want to support the channel, you know what to do. Drop a super chat, become a member. I want to see some emotes in the chat tonight for sure.
They haven't been there. And I've been looking for them.
I seen a couple yesterday, but I feel like we could do better. Yeah,
I think so. I think we could too.
We could do a little bit better, guys. But if you guys want to support the channel, definitely feel free to do so. It guarantees that your comments and questions get read. Billy is a content creator in the wrestling space. Billy has been joining us for live reviews. Billy, I need to know from you just right off the rip. I said a very big statement. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are you thinking?
So, I mean, overall, if I'm gonna rate the show, right, I'll give it a solid 6 out of 10. Me personally,
this should be a fun review.
Yeah, it should, because I don't believe that this was the best AEW Dynamite. I believe it was the best of 2024. but I do not believe that it was the best. I have my own personal takes on this that I plan on offering here soon. I thought the Swerve Hangman thing, that makes sense, right? You can kind of continue that. Maybe help Swerve get back to where he needs to be. The Undisputed Kingdom, we'll get into that.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But Deonna Purrazzo, I loved seeing her on my TV.
Loved Deonna Purrazzo.
I do, bro. I love seeing her on my TV screen. I feel like she's a good stepping stone for AEW's women division. So overall, I'm not gonna say it was the best episode to me, but it was definitely not the worst either.
Interesting. Cameron Johnson says AEW Dynamite was solid tonight. He dropped a $2 super chat. Shout out Cam for the love. I also saw another super chat come in from Dwayne Jackson for $5. He says, I am glad to see the focus is back on the tag team division. Oh boy, we about to get into that for sure.
We got some talking to do.
Guys, Private Party is back. Me personally, I feel like one of my biggest complaints about AEW in the recent year was that they completely dropped the ball on their tag team division. And tonight was the night that got me sold back on the tag team division. And listen, me personally, as a fan, in 2019, 2020, when I see Private Party and I'm thinking, why the hell aren't these guys even featured? To see Marquen come out with Isaiah Cassidy and just seeing the reaction tells me people have been waiting. And me personally, I'm a huge fan of those guys. I'm a huge fan of the roster that they have, but I feel like they've lost their focus. So, Dwayne Jackson, I agree with you. I am glad to see that. We are going to talk more about that in detail. Cam dropped another super chat. He says, fresh start, 8 out of 10 tonight. And actually, this is kind of the good way to open up.
That's fair.
I feel like I disagree with you on the 6 out of 10. I would say that it was definitely a 9 out of 10 episode, which I think a lot of people... For sure. I feel like it's a 9 out of 10. And there's a variety of reasons, and I'm sure people will understand as we talk about this tonight.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, I personally feel like with AEW, they had to find a good balance of sports entertainment and wrestling. Okay. But it's much more than that, right? That's such a general statement.
It is.
And I felt like AEW has to find a balance and pacing and making things feel important. And there's a couple areas of improvement, right? But when I looked at AEW Dynamite tonight, the things that I look for to improve, like that need to be improved, and we'll definitely talk about those things.
Yeah.
Those are things where we have to speak up about them. And I think this is the biggest issue when it comes to social media. And I've said this so many times, and it sometimes like kills me when I have to say this. But for those who don't like criticism of AEW, just understand you are hurting the product much more than the people criticizing. This is a company that largely listens to the community, and I feel like there's a lot of people who are dishonest with their feedback to AEW. And when Cameron Johnson says fresh start, to me this felt like a fresh start. Why? Cody Rhodes wasn't on there. Kenny Omega wasn't on there. The Young Bucks weren't on there. We're talking about the heart and soul of AEW wasn't there. And was their absence felt? Yes, I would say so. But I'm looking at this roster and looking at them and saying, these guys can carry this company. It all depends on booking. And I thought booking tonight was good. There was an area of booking where I said, what the fuck did they just do? And we'll talk about that. But that's kind of how I felt about it. Let me ask you, Billy.
Bring it on.
Because you're the one who gives it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then you said about the undisputed kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to have an issue with that.
I do. I have a big issue with it.
Well, share your thoughts, buddy, because I'm ready. I am ready to discuss that.
Let's just dive in full right into it. So the Undisputed Kingdom, my problem with it, number one, let's start with the name, right? Okay. The name is very, very familiar. And it kind of upset me when I seen it. I get it, right? You're trying to make a change, but are you really changing anything? Because that's what everybody knows Adam for. And, we talked about it on yesterday's stream, right? Change. It happens, right? So now you got me on that, right? You kind of got me yesterday to where I'm like, oh, change is important. So I see something like this and I'm like, oh, well, it's just the Undisputed Era revamped. It's like the Undisputed Era 2.0. Obviously there's new people, so it's not actually the Undisputed Era, but you just slapped the name back on there. And to me, it just feels very WWE like, right? And I didn't want something from the WWE to travel over to AEW. I want it to feel different, right? Because that's what we're searching for in AEW is, what's that word? Alternative. Would I be correct?
Yeah.
And then, so when I see Adam Cole come out there and they talk about Undisputed...
Well, hold on. Not to cut you off. Let's address it one by one.
Yeah.
So your first point, just to be clear, the name.
The name, number one.
What did you think of Undisputed Elite?
The same.
Okay.
Yeah, the exact same.
Okay.
We refuse to change Adam Cole in that aspect.
Yeah. Okay. Let's address that point first, and then we'll move to your second point. You'll be able to make your point.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go one by one.
I don't think the issue is the name. I agree. It's not really creative. It's not really original.
Right.
But to be fair, they merged Adam Cole, who was, and obviously Roderick Strong. They were all in Kingdom, right? Adam Cole's whole moniker is Undisputed. No matter what, if you ever look at Adam Cole's identity, like within WWE or AEW, it's always going to be the Undisputed thing. That's what the hardcore audience will always remember. They will remember that long before the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. So they obviously turned 2 and 2. They put 2 and 2 together, and that's how they get it. I will tell you, personally speaking, I get where you're coming from. I don't know if it's necessarily a big deal. I'm more curious about the booking and the presentation, which, to AEW's credit, I like the fact that they dressed up in all black. The Titantron is black and white. The theme song is cool. I feel like together, when they stand together, I feel like it looks like a legitimate faction, right? Yeah, maybe we can talk about the reveal and everything like that. I feel like they come across as a legitimate faction, even with the visual of Adam Cole sitting on a chair, whatever. But I will tell you this before we get to your second point. If the issue is the name, I understand where you're coming from. I would argue it's not that large of a big enough deal. But also at the same time, too, this is where booking and creative truly matters, because that's going to be, I would say 50% is presentation and 50% is booking and creative. And I would say the 50% of creative aspect of it, of like the presentation standpoint, I don't think it's like terrible. Do I agree? It's recycled, rinse, repeat type of thing. I do 100%. Go ahead. Second point.
So my second point to this, and what kind of upset me, is the why, right? Mm-hmm. And when I say the why, I mean why they attacked MJF and why they chose to, right? Mm-hmm. Because in Adam Cole did, I feel, the best that he could trying to explain the why, saying, oh, at first it was about the championship, but then it turned into about taking from a man and breaking them down. And it just felt, I guess the word that I'm trying to look for is forced. It felt forced in the sense of, you're doing your best to tell me why, right? But I know the real reason why, and the real reason why is that championship belt. But they got lost in the booking, right? And lost track of that belt. People were so keen on it happening, the turn at All In, that we expected it there. And then they didn't do it, and they played it out too long. So what's the one thing that people used to press Vince McMahon for? 50-50 booking.
Yeah.
Right? And what are we witnessing right now? We are witnessing 50-50 booking of Tony Khan not knowing exactly where he should have, because guess what? He chose to listen to the fans in the audience instead of going with his gut. In the biggest building in the United Kingdom, right? At Wembley Stadium, you had 70, 80,000, however many people in that building, and you had a main event between Adam Cole and MJF, and you're telling me 70,000 hardcore wrestling fans sat there, and you could not do it then, and you had to wait all the way till the end of the year? There's a problem with that.
Okay. So your second point, I understand. So let me kind of like backtrack.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I agree with you in certain areas and I disagree in certain areas.
Okay.
I do feel like, looking back in hindsight, you are 100% right. They should have done it at Wembley. Obviously hindsight is 2020, but I do agree that it went too long, and that part of it is obviously very true. The part that I do disagree with you, though, is you said the logic, or like the explaining of it, the why, right? Adam Cole pretty much said it, right? He knew that MJF would do it to him first if he didn't do it. And I know a lot of people tend to forget this, but on AEW programming, that was something that was mentioned in the past with that build-up at All In. When you look at commentary and stuff like that, that was something that was definitely brought up. And they made sure to make that very clear on television, on camera. MJF thinking about doing it. Adam Cole's thinking about doing it. I do hear that side of what you're saying, but the reality is it was in our face. I would like to say though, when it comes to the championship stuff, I feel like my issue with this was the Wardlow thing. And
yeah.
I will 1000% stand firm on this. Wardlow should not be in the group, and they cannot rinse and repeat the same story that they've had in the past where Wardlow then feuds with Adam Cole, because that's they alluded to that, right? They alluded to Adam
Right
Cole saying
away.
on the mic, very clear, oh, one day, like once I'm cleared or whatever, Wardlow's going to build himself up, win the world championship, and hand it over to me.
That was going to be my third point, because that's to the moon.
Yeah.
That's what really set it off for me.
Yeah, that's not something I personally like to see.
No, to say that you're literally going, so the first thing that you say is he's finally in a group where people respect him, and then 30 seconds later be like, oh yeah, but he's going to forfeit the belt as soon as he come on, man. What are we
100%.
doing here?
I agree with that, and I think that's where, again, hindsight is 2020. This is why AEW should have just had Adam Cole do it back then.
Yeah.
I will say though, and I know I've said this before, probably like a year ago or whatever. This is something I've definitely talked about on YouTube, but I feel like Adam Cole is a better heel than a babyface. And I have no problem, like now that I'm seeing this in real time, like I have no problem with him being the devil, but he can't wrestle. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that he can't wrestle, yeah, he could cut these promos and stuff like that. They got to make me believe in this group. They got to make me really care about this group and what they do. And I do like the fact that there's logic, right? When you have Bullet Club Gold and Acclaimed and Billy Gunn go out there, like to me, that was actually a big pop for me, because it's like there was a storyline where both of those groups hated each other, obviously. And there's a lot of history there. And my biggest critique with AEW in the last 2 years was sometimes they do things that don't make sense. While I agree with you in certain areas of this particular setting, yeah, a little bit of it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I did appreciate that they revisited history with Adam Cole saying, hey, he was going to do it to me first. And I really appreciated Bullet Club Gold and the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. I appreciated them all being together. And I also appreciated Jay White when he does eventually come out and then he backs them away instead of scissoring with the guys. I appreciated that, because it doesn't show you that Bullet Club Gold is necessarily babyface. It doesn't show you that they're necessarily heel, but there's a common reason for them to get along.
Yeah, no, so that kind of stuff, it doesn't really, I understand the history. I've watched AEW, so I kind of know exactly where they're coming from. Obviously, these guys have this storyline, and yes, I appreciate that, and I always will, but there's just some things that I won't appreciate it. I think said, trying to take this group serious, it's kind of hard for me to take them serious, right? Because I'm sorry, I think Roderick Strong is a better wrestler than the international championship or whatever. I get trying to make that championship legit, but you haven't yet. You have not.
You don't think AEW has made the international championship legit?
Not enough for me to care about it, because I see Orange Cassidy wrestle Dante Martin, and I feel like I've seen that match more than once. Have you ever had that feeling where you've watched something more than once and you've seen it numerous times, so it's hard to care? Have you had that feeling before?
No, as long as it happens. I mean, you got to think, I sat through a WWE era where Vince McMahon did rematches all the time. I don't mind like having matches. That's not a bad feeling for me. What's a bad feeling for me?
See, that's a great for me. That's a great for me.
But here's the thing, it's got to mean something. It's got to do something, right? And I actually agree, like Dante Martin shouldn't be in that match. Was it a good match? Sure. But the thing is, I actually disagree with you very strongly about the international championship, because I feel like the international championship for a very long time, and the story of Orange Cassidy being a fighting champion, I feel like for a long time that championship belt was the best booked championship belt in this company. I will go as far as saying that AEW, I feel when the Jon Moxley injury and stuff like that all happened, I feel like that kind of hurt it a little bit. And then Orange Cassidy winning it back. But this is where matchmaking and storytelling has to be aligned with each other. And sometimes it's not always parallel for AEW. But I will tell you, 1,000,000%, I don't think Roderick Strong should be an international championship holder. I think that would be the wrong direction for them to go as well. And we'll talk a little bit in in a little bit about who I think should be international champion. I don't look at this group as anything more than a legitimate group for the trios division.
That's kind of how I feel about it. But there's that gripe with Wardlow really sets this wrong for me. And not to get so emotional about it, but it really, really does. Wardlow being in this group just doesn't feel right. It feels like you already messed this group up with him being in there. And at first, like, obviously there were rumors about Wardlow being in it. And like, at first I was okay with it. But then as time went on, I found myself not caring as much. And now I'm looking at it and I see the visual of him in the group and I'm like, I do not like this. And then the Kingdom, I was never the biggest Ring of Honor fan.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it.
Yeah.
You want to make you want to make them important and whatnot. And that's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But my gripe with this is, okay, so we're just going to give them back the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. Why not put your AEW Tag Team division, since they're going to be a prominent show? They're going to be prominent on the show. Why are they going for the Ring of Honor tag titles and not the AEW tag titles?
Yeah, to address that, I think no matter what, the ROH stuff in general needs to be away from AEW TV. I would be a very happy man.
I 100% agree with that statement.
Yeah. You're frozen at the moment. Okay, that is strange. Billy is frozen, so we will get back to him in a second once it's Billy, are you here? You still here?
Yeah. Am I here?
You just completely froze out.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on.
Okay, but yes, I see what you're saying about the ROH. I don't know if you heard me, but basically what I was saying was Ring of Honor needs to just be away from AEW television. It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, 100% agree.
All right. We did get a couple super chats and stuff, so let's do some shout outs. Cedric Gilmer became a member for 16 months. What a G. Cedric, you're the man. Cedric says, love hearing Billy's takes.
My man, Cedric.
I may disagree with Billy, but Billy comes correct, so we appreciate it. If you guys aren't subscribed to Billy, make sure you guys check him out.
Appreciate you guys.
YouTube.com/BillyTKO or at BillyTKO. Bass. I'm so stupid. Bass Tracks dropped $2 super sticker. Appreciate that.
Cool.
We got Bass Tracks with a $2 super chat. El Hijo del Shockmaster caught my eye tonight. Oh, okay. I think I know. I think you're talking about the botch or whatever. I'm still a huge fan of El Hijo. I'm a huge fan of Vikingo, right? Vikingo. Yeah. God. I'm like reading this. I think I'm like can't read anymore. Trying to read and talk, read super chats and talk at the same time, guys.
Dude, it's harder difficult than people would think it is.
We got a couple more, I think. Let's see. I'm trying to keep up, guys. Cameron Johnson dropped $2. He says Wardlow looks out of place to me. Yeah, and I agree. I know Billy said it, and I agree. I don't think Wardlow should be in the group, but he's in the group. I will say, to kind of address what you were saying, Billy, too.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree with it. I think Tony Khan derailed Wardlow, and I know this will bother people, despite all my positive praise that I can say tonight about AEW. When you butcher a guy's push that much, he's desperate. Tony Khan is desperate to find something that works to get this guy over.
He wants to fix it. He wants to fix it so bad because he knows he messed up.
And what is he doing? Rinse and repeat. He's doing the same thing he did with Wardlow and MJF.
And just starting from the beginning.
And it's copying the same thing, right? We know Wardlow's going to eventually take out Adam Cole.
Yeah,
that's long-term stuff. I can see it from a trillion miles away. But yes, I agree that he looks out of place. But this is Tony Khan's version of a rehab. We'll see if it works for him. I am not Avery drops a $4.99. He says, "Get emo Billy. Wardlow is the Jake Hager of the group. Get emo Billy. Billy. What?
Should I?
I don't know. Everybody's always talking about Billy.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody ever talks about Ango.
Oh, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. Wardlow is the Jake Hager of the group. And actually, you know what? That is a very...
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. And just thinking back to a time of Jake Hager kind of upsets me.
You know, it is what it is, right? Like, what can you do, right? Like I said, this is the rehab that Tony Khan needs to do for Wardlow's character. And unfortunately, it's not a good thing for AEW to have Wardlow, who looks like he could be the star of the company, and then it goes downhill.
Just completely flopping it.
But let me ask you, who would you have put in instead of Wardlow?
I wouldn't have put anybody in.
You would have just kept it.
Yeah, I would have just kept the 4. Let it, if especially if you're going to remake the Undisputed Era.
I think Adam Cole's injury probably changed some plans.
I think it did too. I think it did really badly.
Interesting.
Yeah, no.
Justin Kennington, member for 16 months as well. Love hearing the different opinions of Ango and Billy. Love y'all. Keep up the great work. Justin, appreciate you, my boy.
Justin.
Thank you.
That's my man.
Humble 85. Thank you so much for dropping this comment, because I was hoping Billy would have said this. Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah, I mean, that was...
And I'm sorry. I know the IWC don't like Bobby Fish, but I don't really give a shit. Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, Adam Cole. You bring the Kingdom and the Undisputed Elite together. You form the super group. To be honest with you, I feel like the AEW fan base would be foaming out of the mouth for this. They would be drooling for it because they loved Undisputed Era and they love the Kingdom. And you bring them all together.
Isn't Kyle O'Reilly still injured?
I mean, from what I've heard, he has been backstage for a couple weeks now, and the rumor is he was cleared. Now, here's the thing. I will say this. I would normally agree, oh, he's injured, no big deal. Adam Cole's injured, and he's on TV. It's not like when you have a faction of like 8 members, it's not like they need to be on TV. Let's just be real.
Right.
So, personally speaking, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish should have been in the group too. Tony Khan, Bobby Fish probably don't like each other because whatever the hell happened that one day with Bobby Fish, I don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, you know, where's the lie?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are not fans of one another. I think looking back on Twitter and what happened.
Yeah.
But
Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly are one of the best tag teams I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I've seen them live.
100%. It just the sad truth about this is that that's not the case. That's not what happened. Kyle O'Reilly, that group would have felt empty without Bobby Fish, knowing that they couldn't have gotten him. Probably tells me, hey, this was never actually the plans in the first place. That's my personal thoughts about it.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm one of those guys. I question a lot of logic. So I will say I feel like they did a good enough explanation for why they did what they did and what they're doing and their mission.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it as somebody who actually watches AEW. I think people think that I genuinely hate AEW when like the things I'm talking about today, like these are things I've pointed out in the past. So it shouldn't shock people when I say, yeah, Wardlow like shouldn't be involved in these types of stories. Like Wardlow should be this or Wardlow should do that. No, the reality is Wardlow should be a top babyface in the company.
Absolutely,
and
he should be
they
your
blew
guy.
They blew their chance. That's what it is.
Like,
unfortunately, that's all it is.
It's the sad truth, but they messed that up so bad, and it's still. I get emotional about that because I'm a big Wardlow fan, man. He looks the part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you want to see a guy like that succeed because you know he should be.
Yeah. Dwayne Jackson dropping a $5 super chat. He says, did you think TK is saving Mercedes for Revolution since she didn't appear tonight or negotiations are still ongoing? You know, I got a funny theory. I really do have a funny theory about
Can
this.
I hear your theory?
Yeah. Let me hit my theory, Billy, and then I want you to respond accordingly because this is a theory where, truth be told, people might disagree. You might disagree. So for those wondering what we're talking about, Dwayne Jackson dropped a $5 super chat. He says, do you think TK is saving Mercedes for Revolution since she didn't appear tonight or negotiations are still ongoing? This episode is January 3rd, 2024. And, you know, obviously AEW brought in Deonna Purrazzo. Fantastic. She's great. You know, there's been a lot of chit chat about Sasha Banks possibly going back to WWE. There's a lot of chit chat about Mercedes coming into AEW. My theory is that potentially she could very well be going to AEW. I'm not stupid. I fully believe that going to AEW is 100% a realistic option. But I am under the belief that Mercedes is the biggest signing in TNA history. And let's just add a little bit more to that theory. I think it makes a lot of sense because we keep hearing about this potential partnership, and it's all rumors and stuff. But if you want to be realistic, TNA could bring in Mercedes Varnado, and WWE can also utilize her if they have a partnership. I'm just saying it's not out of the realm. My theory is pretty simple. I think Tony Khan wants Mercedes. I think Mercedes is willing to talk to Tony Khan. And I think Mercedes is realizing, or could be realizing, hey, I could be the face of TNA and I could be breaking down barriers when TNA eventually announces the partnership with WWE, which I think is, yes, does it sound crazy? Sure. Do I think it's actually realistic? I do. I do think there could be something there. Do I think it's going to happen? I think we got to wait and see.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way to an extent. I do think there's still a big chance that she does end up in AEW, if I'm being 100% honest. I do feel like there's always that chance that Tony Khan just, I mean, looking back, Tony Khan could just keep that in his back pocket, especially, and the reason why I say this, right? The reason why I say Tony could be keeping this in his back pocket is simply off the fact of Tony has dealt with so much criticism recently of bringing people in and just getting the moment, right?
Yeah.
He could have easily brought her in and just got the moment. But instead, tonight, what he did, he brought in Deonna Purrazzo, and he got a quick little moment right there, at least for the hardcore fans, right?
Sure. That actually hurts Deonna Purrazzo, though, in the long run, because Mercedes will be the new shiny toy in the company, and Deonna Purrazzo becomes an afterthought. And I'm sorry to tell you this, because I know no matter how much I could praise AEW, historically speaking, this is literally what happens with every signing.
Don't you think that Tony Khan could be trying to right his wrongs and trying to fix that? That way it doesn't look like this is his new shiny toy?
I would love for you to be right, Billy. I would seriously love for you to be right.
So would I. So would I. But I
don't
do
think
understand. I do understand that the past tells us that that is not the case. But we're hearing rumblings of her going to AEW. I personally feel like there's still that shot. Do I think she could do really well and fit well in TNA? And I think, like you said, you know, she kind of goes hand in hand with, you know, Naomi being there too, and seeing Naomi on TNA Plus and being the front runner and the face of that kind of tells me that they are really heavy on their women's division.
Yeah.
But I just feel like at the end of the day, she may choose AEW. That's just my thoughts.
No, she could very well choose AEW, but let me remind you, Billy, there was something I talked about in my video, why Will Ospreay should sign with TNA, right?
Yep.
I don't think people realize with TNA, you could like them, hate them. You can talk about things from 20 years ago because that's what the IWC does. They never want to talk about TNA modern day. It's like talking about like it just doesn't make sense. They talk about something they don't watch, right? But TNA is very good to their women's division, and they got the money to pay Mercedes. So I'm just saying, Will Ospreay going to TNA, like I made this point before. I'm like, Kenny Omega is AEW. Roman Reigns is WWE.
100%.
TNA has Josh Alexander, and they have Alex Shelley, and they have Trinity Fatu, and they had all of these great talents, but they never really had somebody in the last few years that truly was that person.
Yeah.
So I always said for Will Ospreay, if you can get the money, you do it. And if you're, you know, so-and-so, people might seem to disagree with this, but I just feel like it makes so much sense for Mercedes to do it. And again, it's all he say, she say when it comes to this partnership with WWE, if it actually happens, if it doesn't happen. But if WWE has some sort of partnership with TNA and you get paid from TNA, dude, you're not only the face of the company, but then you get to go to WWE and do the matchups that you want to do. While still, you're the one who's breaking the ground for everybody in history. You will be known as the person that literally grew TNA, and you will be known as the person that entered the partnership with WWE. You were the one who walked through the forbidden door. Like, that is something that is exciting and appealing to me. And I have no problem being wrong with this. I can see why she would go to AEW, but I feel like this could backfire on AEW, and it could actually backfire on talent who sign with AEW when they go to a company where it's just a lot of signings and then eventually they fade away.
Right. I really do genuinely hope, right, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that Tony Khan does fix this problem and actually get it right. You know what I mean? It was a heavy problem. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that one.
For sure. We did get a couple more super chats. Thank you, Dwayne. I am not Avery. Drop $4.99. He says, "Get happy, Ango. Undisputed Kingdom will fade away with no reason, like the Pinnacle." And that's my fear. I do have that fear.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have that fear. I think this is a very difficult storyline for them to navigate through because you have to consider the fact that Adam Cole's injured, and how long he's injured for and stuff like that. That's the question that, like, I think we need the answer to, because without Adam Cole wrestling, yes, he's great. He's a great heel. He can cut these promos. We'll find out. It's too early to judge whether this will work or not. I just think eventually, if it does go through what the Pinnacle does, I think a lot of people will have lost faith in AEW because this was such a massive story.
And into that, I say again, going back kind of the Sasha thing, you're trying to fix and right your wrongs, right?
Yeah.
So this, I'm hoping, and everything in me is hoping that this is AEW trying to fix their wrongs. I get it. Right now, you kind of got the Wardlow thing wrong. But if you can find a way to push me through this, sure, I'll get behind it. I'm not going to sit here and beat on it right away. You know what I'm saying? I'll give it time. I'll let it play out.
For sure. Thank you. I'm not Avery for the super chat. Shane Davies dropping 5. He says, "How do you feel Adam Cole is being utilized in AEW compared to his NXT run? Happy New Year's, guys. Love from Ireland." Shane Davies, thank you for the super chat. Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year.
Before I answer this, I'm gonna let Billy go first because I feel like you've been pretty opinionated on this Devil storyline and stuff like that. But when you answer this question, I want you to from 2021 All Out, when Adam Cole came in, to now, right? How would you judge the story?
So I get his question. He's trying to compare AEW Adam to NXT Adam. NXT Adam was something special. What happened?
I hate to interrupt. Some breaking news coming out of TNA Wrestling. Josh Alexander versus Alexander Hammerstone from MLW has been officially announced at TNA Hard to Kill, and it looks like TNA may have signed Hammerstone, which is fantastic because there's been tons of rumors that WWE and AEW have been bringing him in.
Right. So great for TNA. Another great pickup, man. They're just picking up everybody. They're getting everybody there.
Wow.
They're picking up talent, man. Would I be wrong for saying that? TNA, if anything, they're doing that.
I hate to cut you off, but as a guy who talks about news,
you are okay. That's breaking news. That's big. Congrats,
big news.
TNA,
I'll talk
man.
about it in a video. I'll give all my thoughts on it. That's obviously a big deal, but go ahead and continue with your Adam Cole thing.
So my thoughts here with Adam Cole going, the difference between the two, NXT and AEW. So NXT, Triple H knew how to book Adam Cole. Triple H loved Adam Cole. So he knew kind of right away what he wanted to do with him, putting him with Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, later on Roderick Strong. I mean, that was it's kind of like when you have something, and I kind of look at it as the Shield, right? The Shield back in 2012, they were outstanding. You wanted, them to succeed, and you wanted them to do well, and they were your favorite thing to watch. But the more and more as time went on, they had to make a change, and later in 2014, obviously they did. But they needed to make a change really bad, and that was one of those changes that eventually was going to happen with Adam Cole over in AEW. So as soon as Adam Cole left and Kyle O'Reilly stayed back, Roderick Strong stayed back, it kind of lost its spark, right? And now we're looking at the Undisputed Kingdom. Again, I was not the biggest watcher of Ring of Honor. I was a watcher of AEW and WWE. So I don't know much about the Kingdom to even judge the Kingdom in whole, but I will say seeing them on AEW TV, they don't feel super important to me. So when I see them with Adam Cole, I see them trying their best to make this feel important. But to me, it just does not feel important enough. So I think if I were to compare the two, NXT Adam Cole was one of my favorites, and that's just hard. That's a hard comparison because it's going to be hard to live up to that when that was such a statement in time.
Yeah. I was there for their debut.
Yeah.
Okay. In NXT. So I do have a little bit of a bias, like physically being there. I was also there for Adam Cole's AEW debut. and I love the AEW debut, right?
Yeah.
But then what happened? Bryan Danielson came, and it kind of overshadowed Adam Cole a little bit. Adam Cole and AEW, they try to recreate the magic of Undisputed Era, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part of it. I will say Adam Cole has been booked fine. However, I feel like it's now or never for Adam Cole. And the reason why is because you have Jay White, you have Hangman Page, you have Swerve Strickland, who now wants gold. You have a plethora of talent who I feel like could be holding the world championship. With Adam Cole's injuries, I feel like that could be an issue. So I don't feel like he's being utilized poorly. I just feel like there's a lot of other guys who are going to maximize this TV time where Adam Cole slightly becomes the guy that I wouldn't say people don't care about, but I would say people are going to reflect on it and be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
And
sucks, but
that's the unfortunate part. But also there was something very magical about the Undisputed Era in NXT. And it just, I don't think they could recreate that. And this is them trying to figure it out. And I think he's a great talent. I feel like if Undisputed Era were in NXT and on the main roster right now, I feel like Triple H would be making them. I feel I would have a lot of confidence in Triple H versus Tony Khan. That's just me personally.
Yeah, because Tony Khan hasn't given us enough faith right now, the way Triple H did with NXT and Black and Gold.
Yes.
And,
But I will say, if it wasn't for Tony Khan, I don't think there would be as many factions in WWE right now. And so partially I have Tony Khan to thank for that, because I feel like WWE does a good job with factions. Yeah. But that's kind of how I look at it. Shane, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. We got a couple more to go through. Appreciate you guys being patient. Obviously, we had some news to break and stuff like that. But DJ Noel, $4.99, he says, I think they should make the international title for talents that are part of AAA, NJPW, KJPW, and other promotions AEW is partnered with outside the US. Yeah, I feel like I will say this as well. I feel like the international championship, because I said earlier we would talk about it, Konosuke Takeshita should be the one holding that belt. He did a very good job tonight. Finally, they gave him a singles match again. This guy beat Kenny Omega twice. Konosuke Takeshita is one of my favorite talents in AEW. He's really high up there on my list. Konosuke is going to AJPW very soon. I would have Konosuke Takeshita take that belt, travel with that belt. And if WWE and TNA don't offer in a partnership, AEW needs to work with TNA, because TNA also works with AAA and all these other companies. Have that belt go around. And personally speaking, I feel like Konosuke should be the next one to hold the belt. Roderick Strong should not be anywhere close to it. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with that one. I think Takeshita is the guy to hold that championship belt. Again, I said it earlier, keep him away from that title. I don't think he needs that at all. I think Roddy, for the storyline that they're trying to create, is so above that. But I think Takeshita is actually a great person to, like you say, travel with the belt and take it all around. Let it be the actual international title. Yeah. And let it be what it actually means.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is, like, there is a lot of potential there with that title belt. They just gotta put it in different areas. I agree with DJ here. They should really put that belt everywhere. And here's the thing. Luckily for AEW, they have a good working relationship with New Japan. So, hopefully, New Japan has their new IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship belt.
I think it looks sick, by the way.
Yeah, which I think it looks great. I mean, dude, there's matchups that you can do for it. This belt, it could definitely be a traveling belt.
It needs to be.
It needs to be, yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be.
Thank you, DJ, for the super chat. Lots of stuff here. Justin Kennington dropped a $2 one. He says, do you feel Camille from NWA will sign with WWE? I made a video on this today. WWE is reportedly very high on Camille. Look, this might bother people, unfortunately, for as positive as I've been about AEW recently. One thing that I historically speaking, AEW has done a pretty bad job of booking talent that came from TNA. So here's the thing. Deonna Purrazzo is in AEW now. Good for her. I tweeted it out. I've had a personal interaction with Deonna Purrazzo. I'm a big fan of Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah.
Aside from being just a good wrestler, like based on my conversation with her, I don't even think she knew who I was at the time that I met her. Maybe she still doesn't even know who I am. I don't know. But I met her at Impact when I was there visiting, and Deonna Purrazzo was a fantastic talent, right?
Yeah.
I became a very big fan of Deonna Purrazzo, especially after that interaction. So for me, I am rooting for Deonna Purrazzo to succeed in AEW.
Yeah, I want to see her win.
Historically speaking, though, Ethan Page and some of these other talents that have come in, Kiera Hogan, some of these other talents that have come from TNA into AEW, they haven't really been booked that well.
You're trying to tell me Sanjay Dutt was booked wrong?
Sanjay Dutt was actually a WWE producer, if I remember correctly, before he went. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
My point that I'm trying to make, though, is that with Impact losing Deonna Purrazzo, I would actually feel much more happier about Camille joining TNA versus WWE, because they're going to need a little bit of help getting some more female talent. So imagine if TNA were to bring in Camille and Mercedes. That's a great start, a fantastic start. Do I think she'll sign with WWE if WWE offers her the money? I mean, money talks, right? If Impact brings her in, I'm totally cool with that. I would say keep Camille away from AEW because they just brought in Deonna. They're rumored to bring in Mercedes. I don't think they need to do that. But Tony Khan said it himself at the at the media scrum. They're looking at free agents in the women's division. Yep. I think TNA, in terms of booking, they have the greatest knockouts division. And
you've been very keen on that for a long time.
I say it all the time. Yeah, this is not a company. I've had my conversations with people in Impact, and I told them, I said, this is something I appreciate about Impact, because they don't sit there and brag about their women's division. Like, and Triple H is starting to get the women's division back on track, and AEW is starting to get the women's division back on track. But TNA was putting on the women without utilizing it for PR. Yeah. And nobody ever seems to argue this with me because they can't, but that was kind of how it was. Like, Impact has always just put the women out there, main events, put on these shows, whatever. And it was like, they never said, "Ooh, look at us. This is how we treat women." They just do it. So yeah, I feel like Impact, when it comes to the women's division, 100%.
They definitely get it right. They definitely get it right.
They do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin, for the super chat. I appreciate you. We got a couple more super chats. Thomas Franco, he says, I just became a channel member, bro, for $1.99. And that is actually true. I did see Thomas Franco actually became a channel member before we even went live.
Shout out to this guy.
Shout out to Thomas. Yo, I need to see some emotes in the chat.
Bring them on.
We got some emotes in here, bro. And maybe I could get some more too, but like, we got the fire emote, the hype, the trigger.
I really like the 316 one.
Ango 316 says, I just whipped your candy ass.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Dude, I gotta come up with a slogan.
Yeah.
Like, put it on a shirt or something and just wear it all the time. This was the best show of the year. That's why. Thomas Franco, thank you for becoming a member, and thank you for the super chat as well. I appreciate it. Eli Samuel Rosario. Oh, he just became a YouTube member. Shout out to Eli. Eli is, if you guys don't follow Eli on Twitter, man, you guys should follow Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. It makes me happy to see people like this exist on Twitter, because Twitter is annoying as hell. So shout out to Eli. Thank you for becoming a member. Justin dropped another super chat. He says, you think AEW should have a pay-per-view before Revolution? Billy, this is no. State your piece so I can disagree with you real fast.
No.
The floor is yours, brother. The floor is yours.
So the reason why I'm saying that they do not need to have another pay-per-view is because I wasn't the biggest fan of World's End. No, tell your stories on TV, make them important. Do what AEW did in the beginning. Go back to your mission statement. They had 4 pay-per-views in the beginning. I don't need you to change up now. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I need you to get your stories right, and right now get them in order, because it feels like stories are out of order.
I hate you, Billy.
Why, bro?
For 6 months, I've been saying now that AEW should have more pay-per-views, because you'll see more payoffs to storylines. The problem is these pay-per-views are like 8 hours long, terrible pacing. They get kind of boring despite the good matches. if you have more pay-per-views, you get more payoffs, and on top of that, you could feature more talent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to really compare WWE and AEW right now, but I will also give TNA and WWE credit. They do these premium live events all the time. And TNA does 4 pay-per-views per year, but they do these special live events.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you see a lot of cool stuff when they do these. And when you have them more frequent, I think it would actually solve one of AEW's biggest problems.
And what's
Because
that?
AEW's biggest problems is sometimes they don't know when or how to pull the trigger on a storyline or on a push. And the reason why is because, as we saw with Keith Lee and Swerve, it took them 8 months to tell a story, and then they skipped a pay-per-view and they skipped this and they skipped that, and then it eventually loses its momentum.
But again, it goes back to the problem of we need to right the wrongs from the beginning. And
So how do you do that, Billy? You cannot do that with the format, though. We are talking about a fundamental issue. When you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pay-per-views a year, you're still having a big gap within time, and that is the problem.
But if you're doing the special events, what's the problem? Because we're praising WWE right now, right? For the paper or for the little shows that they're doing, and we're like, oh, this is great because it adds hype to it. Why not make those shows feel important, right?
But
make them feel good, and then do your regular 4.
I'm sorry, I don't think you're seeing the vision. What I'm saying is, forget about the special episodes. AEW already does that. I'm talking about pay-per-views.
I
pay-per-views.
Yes, I know.
TNA does a special events, which you can get included on TNA Impact Plus, or TNA Plus now is what it is. But what I'm trying to say is, though, like, WWE for NXT would do the special episodes of NXT, and that was great. But there's also a lot more NXT pay-per-views. NXT never has an issue with doing payoffs or like capitalizing on momentum. That's how I know this is an issue that gets solved in AEW, because there's 2 companies, TNA and WWE, where they do this. It's a fundamental issue. I promise you, more pay-per-views solves the problem for AEW. And Justin, yes, I do believe they should do a pay-per-view before Revolution. It is January 3rd, 2024, and I got to wait until March, which, by the way, that pay-per-view, the biggest thing selling that pay-per-view right now, which they're selling a lot of tickets, it has almost everything to do with the fact that it's going to be Sting's last match. So at the end of the day, if you make it onto that card, that's fantastic. But that means there's going to be like 13 matches. It's going to be 5-6 hours long.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be big. But I want to say something, because before we get away from this topic, I get it right now. Before we move on from this topic, one of your biggest gripes with AEW, and I watch your channel. I'm little do people know I'm a fan of Ango, right? But there's some things that Ango. No. Hold on. There's some things about Ango that rub me the wrong way. And one thing is that you talk about a mission statement with AEW and how important it is for them to continue and go back to doing. So we look at Private Party, right? That's great. You love that. I know you do. Less working, right? That was kind of the big thing with AEW. You weren't going to go there and you weren't going to beat up your body and you weren't going to have to go through all this. The 4 pay-per-view format in the beginning was great. In the beginning was fantastic.
No, I think this was an issue for a very long time.
But my thing about it is if you were to take away the 12 match system, 13 match system, to where they all felt like a Dynamite, main event, which you've said before.
Yeah.
If you take that away and you make those matches feel more important, do you think it's worth them to do the 4 pay-per-views? If they're only doing 7, we'll say 6, 7 matches on a card, do you think then it is maybe worth it for AEW to continue with the 4 pay-per-view format? I get it. You want more talent. I get it. You want more talent, but why?
Why do I want more talent?
They should be proving themselves on TV.
So put them on TV. When you have a pay-per-view every month and you have more people on TV, now you have some stories that may not even have to be told at every pay-per-view. Okay. Like, for example, if every pay-per-view has 13 matches or 10 matches, 11 matches, it's very easy to just be another match on the card, right?
Yes,
right?
100%.
But let's say, you have before Revolution, you do another one, right? In January or February or whatever.
Yeah.
You do another pay-per-view, and MJF right now is hurt and Samoa Joe is there as champion. You don't want to necessarily make him a transitional champion. You don't want him to drop it to Swerve.
I got some gripes on that too. We'll talk about that.
Sure. But you can have Samoa Joe on pay-per-view defending the world championship against a guy who maybe is trying to get TV time. You give him the TV time, you get the match, and he can go on to fight against Samoa Joe and lose. So that way Samoa Joe is not a transitional champion right away, but that person who is now getting TV time gets the chance to show what he can do in a high-profile feud for Samoa Joe. See, the biggest misconception out there on social media is that wins and losses really, really matter. And I don't believe that's always the case.
Yeah.
You can look good in a defeat. It's just how you do it. Now, here's the thing. If you do pay-per-view for every 4 months or, every 3 months or whatever it may be, and you do the same situation, that person's not going to get over because it's just taking a long time. I stand firm on this. I truly believe having more pay-per-views solves the issue. AEW has too many times, historically speaking, where they have not, unfortunately, pulled the trigger or momentum. And this is why people, and the easiest example is the Swerve and Keith Lee thing, because they've come back to it and people are like, why the fuck are you doing that? So my solution to that is more pay-per-views, less matches on these pay-per-views, so they're a lot easier to watch. And here's the thing. If you're doing more pay-per-views, it is a very tough thing to do for $50 or $40, $60, whatever it may be. But this is where it's important having a great television partner where, you have streaming, because as we've seen with TNA and WWE, they're able to do more of these events by having those streaming platforms.
Partners, right. And having the partners.
So that's one reason why I love that TNA and WWE do it. I'm telling you, if Tony Khan announces it tomorrow, you will have a whole different reaction. And I'm just letting you know ahead of time, like, there's a reason why Tony Khan wants a streaming deal. It's more content, more money. So yeah, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And I believe that when it does happen, it actually solves a lot of the problems for AEW.
And if that is the case, I'll come back and I'll say, hey, I was wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right? But I will say right now, I just sadly disagree. I think I like the original format, what it was. I'm just going.
We're just very interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will.
All right, Justin, thank you for the super chat. I am not Avery, who has been dropping super chats all night. He actually became a YouTube member as well.
Shout out to I am not Avery.
Appreciate you.
I was gonna say Avery, but he's not Avery.
I'm gonna just call him Avery.
Yeah.
No, wait, he's not Avery.
Yeah, so. Right. You can't call him Avery. He's not.
He did drop a comment that I felt was interesting. He says 6 pay-per-views, 1 every 2 months would be healthier. Even this would be a solution.
That's okay.
And Bobby Turner also mentioned 8 pay-per-views a year would be great. And I wouldn't even have an issue with 8, but that means there's 4 months without a pay-per-view or whatever. So personally speaking, I think it's got to be 1 a month. There's 12 months in a calendar year, and I won't change my mind on that. I've been fighting for that forever. And I really do gotta stay firm on that. So obviously important.
I like Avery's. I'm not.
DJ Avery. Dropped a $4.99. He says before Triple H got sick, he wanted to buy ROH. Vince tried to destroy Triple H, released a lot of Triple H talents that AEW has. So thanks to Vince, why AEW is so big. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to look at the creation of AEW, it stems from the fact that Vince McMahon was not creating a desirable product.
Yeah, which is fumbling the bag.
And that's the reality. And that's actually a good thing for the wrestling industry, because it, like, literally we have a place, which I don't know if you guys saw this, but Steve Maclin is Deonna Purrazzo's husband. Steve Maclin is a top talent in TNA. Steve Maclin is somebody who I felt like WWE dropped the ball on. Me and my friend Anthony Nukes, we've talked about this on Twitter, and it seems to get a lot of buzz when we say it. But Steve Maclin is like a modern day Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it's not the way he talks, it's just the way he wrestles and the way he is as a performer. Yeah. And a lot of people have been saying, yeah, he is. Now, the thing is, when I see WWE drop the ball on a Steve Maclin, back when he was in WWE, he was Steve Cutler. He goes to TNA and becomes a star. I look at WWE and how they've handled releases, and I've seen 2 other companies take talent and really reshape them. And TNA has done that exceptionally well with talent. AEW, there's a couple good examples, a couple bad examples, obviously. But my point that I'm making is, if WWE was constantly the best company in terms of creative and business, and they didn't release talent, there would not be AEW. And I don't think TNA would have some of the talent that they do. So it's a good thing that Vince McMahon screwed up. It's an amazing thing that TNA and AEW exist. And this is why I will 100% always be non-biased. I will never be biased towards a wrestling company, and I will always be critical when I think I should be critical.
Absolutely.
It may not be the correct answer. It may not be the right answer. It might not be the popular opinion, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to say how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of genuine comments that come from me. There has never been a time where I've ever lied with my opinions. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, I remember when WWE was the only player in town and it sucked.
It was a
And I
monopoly.
remember people literally do not realize how important this is. This is why I'm critical. This is why I talk about TNA's presentation and production so much for years. Anthem's booking is great. Presentation and the production element needs work. I say these things because I'm hoping that somebody out there understands that maybe I am right. Not saying that I am right, but I hope somebody looks at it and says, you know what, that's actually a fair point. And now look, Impact rebranding to TNA, new production, higher quality,
It
the
looks
things that
good,
matter.
man. I'm excited for TNA.
Like when they show the new stage and the new cameras and the new quality, there's a reason why they need to do that because people will be watching. And
Yes.
you don't want it to look like an indie show. So there's a lot of things I will say because that's my hope is that there's change. And I truly do want WWE to be good and I want AEW to be good and I really want TNA to be good. And sometimes people may not even realize this. I'm pretty critical of MLW as well. But the reason why I'm critical of these companies is because I feel like every company could do better. And DJ makes a really good point. ROH would have been a WWE thing. And I hate ROH. I'm never going to lie about this. I think ROH in 2024 is not something I care about. And it's unfortunate because not everything's even bad.
Dude,
But
it's just hard to get behind all the wrestling.
There's a lot of wrestling going on. I don't think ROH really stands out. I don't
No,
think
it
ROH
doesn't.
is, but
Athena's not enough for me to get behind Ring of Honor.
but Sinclair Broadcasting sucked as an owner for ROH. I was watching ROH and I saw how bad they sucked.
Yeah.
And if WWE bought ROH, it would be non-existent. They would have the tape
It
library.
would be a tape library. Yeah, I was about to say.
So as somebody who wants a healthier wrestling industry, what do I prefer? WWE holding the tape library or AEW holding the tape library and at least giving people a place to work?
I mean, it's fair to say that we all want to see these people have a place to work. So Tony owning Ring of Honor is probably best for business.
And like I said, I don't think he's been handling it the best.
No, but it gives people a place to work.
But it's a place to work, and it's better than what Sinclair Broadcasting was doing. I think people really forgot when ROH, before AEW even existed, ROH was not.
I didn't care up until the last final battle when the Briscoes and Dax and FTR, excuse me.
That was like once before they announced the AEW bought them
right,
thing. Like,
but you've seen them play into each other, so that was the only reason why I cared at that time.
I'm just saying it could have been a lot worse for that company, and it was pretty bad before. So, again, and let me just be very clear, guys. If some people, I've seen somebody in the chat say, "Well, why do you care so much if other people have a place to work?" Well, this is my full-time job talking about wrestling. So the healthier the wrestling industry is, the better it is for me and my business. So
sounds fair to me.
It doesn't make sense for me to want ROH gone or WWE gone or AEW gone because literally I make all of my life living. I make all of my living being able to talk about wrestling. So I want wrestling to be good, but at the same time, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, Triple H, you're doing the best," or "Tony Khan, you're doing the best." I might joke around on Twitter and say Shawn Michaels is Booker of the Year or this and that, whatever.
Are you sure you're joking
about Shawn Michaels being Booker of the Year?
Yeah.
I think Shawn Michaels is the most consistent booker of the year, but I don't think Shawn Michaels, in terms of what NXT is doing, has presented one massive storyline that is bigger than anything Triple H or Tony Khan has done.
That's fair.
I think Tony Khan and Scott D'Amore are two of the most consistent bookers every single week.
Yeah,
but I can name several storylines in WWE where Triple H has completely changed the game with it. And I think you could even say from a matchmaking perspective, Tony Khan has put on some very, very big matches.
Absolutely.
So it's very difficult for me to say, oh, this, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that's, we want a healthy wrestling industry for
That
several.
we do. That we do.
Sean dropped the super chat for $5. He says, if Deonna Mercedes goes to AEW and Camille and Trinity go to WWE, do you think these are the right moves given their rosters and booking? Thanks. Sean, fantastic question. I have a couple things to say about this, but I'm going to let Billy go first. And yeah.
So if Deonna Mercedes go to AEW, go to WWE. So I love Deonna. I love Deonna over in AEW. I think she fits very well. I stated earlier that Mercedes going to AEW, I don't think is the worst idea, but I, in some degree, kind of agree with Ango that she could go over to TNA, be the face over there. But other than that, I mean, I think Deonna and Mercedes would probably have the best booking over in AEW. That's my humble opinion, personal opinion, that I think they would be booked best over there. Ango kind of argued me a little bit earlier, saying that Deonna actually would be overshadowed by Mercedes, which I humbly disagree with. I think that AEW is trying to fix that mistake of just bringing in people and making them a new shiny toy. So I really would love to see AEW eventually fix that problem and make these ladies important and make them all important, right? Because you have Tony Storm on that roster. You have Jamie Hayter on that AEW roster. There are so many people that Mercedes and Deonna can work with. And Camille and Trinity going to WWE. I think Camille actually has the look for WWE. Is that crazy for me to say?
No, 100%.
Yeah, I think she has the look for WWE, so I think she could fit over there. Trinity going to the WWE. I actually want to see her stay in TNA. Truth be told, seeing Trinity stay in TNA makes me very happy. I don't want to see her go back to WWE. I think she's doing a great job in TNA. I think if you're going to have Mercedes go to TNA, right? If that's going to be the plan and, that's your big signing, you keep Trinity. You keep Trinity right there and you let the women, if you want, let the women be your focus in TNA.
I mean, they already have such a big focus there on the women anyways, but what I will say, because honestly, it's so fun thinking about this, but it goes back to what I was saying about Will Ospreay or CM Punk going to TNA. And I always get met with the, TNA doesn't have money. TNA doesn't have this. That's all baloney.
Yeah.
Anthem's got money. Maybe not as much as Tony Khan, maybe not as much as WWE. They got to be smart about how they use their money. But that's why Anthem, when they took over, they did lower their production. They did lower certain things. They had to do things a little bit differently so that way they could be responsible with money to now get the big free agents. Don't be shocked. I literally talk about this in every video that I've ever done about a potential free agent signing. I always say whoever is the big free agent signing should go to TNA for one reason. It's
TNA needs that person.
Bloated roster in WWE, bloated roster in AEW. I love a lot of wrestlers in both companies, and I love a lot of wrestlers in TNA, but TNA's roster is not bloated. That's the first thing. But also, these guys have a chance to become a bigger deal in TNA right off the rip than going to AEW or WWE. So, like, again, it's probably not the most popular opinion, but like Mustafa Ali should go to TNA.
Absolutely.
Dolph Ziggler should go to TNA. Tenille Dashwood should go to TNA. Dana Brooke should go to TNA. Like, this is how you build a roster. You bring some formidable names that are like known, relatively known, right?
Right,
and then you bring them in and you let them go. See, the reason why Drew McIntyre was able to come back to WWE was because he went to TNA. So when he went to TNA, we saw an amazing storyline play out.
It was kind of like the same thing with Bobby Lashley. He had an amazing run in
Bobby Lashley. EC3 was another one.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of names that came from TNA that were important that WWE eventually, they just rehabbed themselves there. They rehabbed.
It's a fantastic strategy.
Yeah.
Look at Cody Rhodes. People forgot when Cody Rhodes was doing ROH and TNA and he was doing New Japan. Like, he went everywhere outside of WWE when he left.
Wasn't TNA the first place where they did the Woe, or at least he came out with that theme song?
Kingdom, I'm pretty sure debuted, and it was either ROH or TNA.
Yeah.
But I remember him and Mike Bennett and Impact, and it was like, oh shit, this is dope. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, people don't give TNA the actual credit that they deserve, I feel like.
And I'm gonna let you guys in on a little tidbit, right?
Bring
With
it on.
Impact, you have a lot more of a chance to go and figure out your character yourself. Like, yes, they have producers and stuff at Impact, but when I look at TNA, it's like, it's not like Scott D'Amore is walking up to you and being like, this is your new character, this is your new gimmick. That's not how it is in that company. And I think that is probably a good strategy for these wrestling companies to say, hey, we should have a little bit of trust. And obviously AEW does that to a certain extent too. But when you look at TNA, a company who doesn't have a bloated roster, like Mustafa Ali right now, he has him and Elijah, formerly known as Elias. Like, these guys will get to go there and do the gimmick that they want to do and put out the content that they want to do. And if it gets over, the first thing that it's going to do for them is elevate them even more. It's going to make them much more desirable to the point where any person from AEW or WWE will have to
They're going to be foaming from the mouth for these guys.
and they'll be like in a bidding war almost.
Right, exactly.
So,
because Mustafa Ali is going to go there, and Elijah, they're going to go there and make their names huge. I feel it.
And they're already fantastic talent, and they've had some good stuff in WWE. So, Sean, to answer your question, I think no free agent signing should go to WWE or AEW. But I will also say, because I feel like I have to mention this point, when there is a massive free agent out there, regardless of bloated rosters and stuff like that, if it's one that could be a legitimate game changer, there is no reason whatsoever you hesitate. So
like CM a CM Punk. Yeah.
CM Punk, free agent, you don't hesitate, you do it. Mercedes Varnado, no hesitation, you do it. Now, this is where you have to have a really good plan on how to utilize them, because you don't want to be the company that says, you don't want to be the person that's responsible for fumbling CM Punk or Mercedes Varnado or whatever. Right. Like, look at it from Naomi could have gone to AEW initially. She went to TNA and amazing. Like, she kind of kept her same gimmick a little bit, but it flowed a little bit better. And look at the way she's been presented, and I feel like that's why I say TNA should always be the first spot that you go to. But of course, if AEW or WWE is offering you the money and TNA
you take it and you run.
You take the money, bro, no matter what.
That's just the truth behind it.
And I get it, like, from a perspective. I don't want to spend too much time, but like from the perspective of like, oh, well, WWE works more than AEW and this and that. Yeah. Bro, you're getting paid. It's a job. So AEW will have the luxury of saying, hey, you could work less dates and we'll pay you a lot of money.
Right.
Some people, by the way, are okay with getting paid and not doing shit.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who are like, no, I have to be working. Like, they gotta work.
And then you have to work, all the time.
Yeah. So do I think they're the right moves? I think they make a lot of sense. I don't think there's anything that like doesn't make sense about them, but I just think it makes more sense for them to go to TNA regardless. Right. But I'm always going to say that. I'm always going to say that until TNA faces the inevitable issue of where their roster is bloated and stuff like that.
So I actually want to jump in and ask you something. Yeah. What were your thoughts on Hangman and Swerve tonight? Seeing that at the end.
I'm excited. Hangman and Swerve 3 is a big deal.
Why do you think it's a big deal?
Because they look at the story they've been telling. Look at what they've done with both of them. And this is gonna suck for a lot of people who hate when I talk about WWE, but one thing I loved about Cody and Brock was that it was a trilogy, and it made that third match feel like a big deal. And I actually made a video talking about why trilogies in wrestling is a big deal. It should feel like MMA. Like, UFC does a good job of building up trilogy fights.
Like the Dustin Poirier Conor McGregor fight. Those felt like a huge deal.
Yeah, so to me, that's the vibe I get from Hangman and Swerve. It's like, oh shit, like, this is a big deal. I will say with Swerve and Hangman, because I did have a criticism of AEW tonight too that I have to get to.
Yeah.
But like, Swerve and Hangman's a very difficult feud to book because both guys aren't really in a position where they should be losing.
Right, exactly.
Just like you had tonight in the main event with Swerve and Daniel Garcia.
I was just going to say, I have one singular gripe about this all, and it's the overshadowing of Daniel Garcia. I think Daniel Garcia, and then another gripe with that is that there was no mention of him and Daniel Bryan, although they've been kind of playing into that, right? I don't like when things are not continuous. And that's one thing that has not been continuous and only happens so often. I get it, the Daniel Garcia thing. He was the entertainer. It's time to pull him away from that. I think it's kind of played out. You know what I'm saying?
Again, failure to pull the trigger.
Exactly. Failure to pull the trigger. But there are some issues with this that I'm like, okay, what are we doing with Daniel Garcia? Why is he being overshadowed? And earlier in the night, they had a really good vignette with Daniel Garcia talking about how he needs to win this match. That was good. I love that. You know what I'm saying? Little dancing. Oh, come on now. Yeah. But I see that and I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. But then at the end, he gets low blowed, and then Swerve is just not doing that. And he's swerving while he's driving. He gives a low blow. And then here comes Hangman Page. And it feels like the same people get featured on TV.
Yeah.
And not enough people are actually, because we've talked earlier about how, we want to see these people on TV. And I agree with that. You know what I mean? These guys do need to be on TV more. I do want to see Daniel Garcia in more singles matches. He deserves those singles matches. Those are guys that you should be building your company around. The Sammy Guevaras of the world, the Darby Allins, those are your guys. You know what I mean? And I get it, wanting to look at the Hangman Pages and stuff as the big faces right now. That's fair. But don't overshadow your young talent.
Yeah, continuity is a big thing. AEW obviously will have a chance to follow up with the Garcia stuff with Rampage and Collision this week.
Right.
But if they don't, then that's something I will obviously talk about next week on the review, because I'm huge part of me is continuity. Like, again, I'm really not complicated to please when it comes to wrestling. I'm like a fucking like a little child sometimes watching this shit. The only thing is, like, it's like watching a movie or like a series on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And you're watching each episode and you're like, well, why did this happen? Like, what does it have to do with this? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm swear I don't need.
It's almost like a puzzle. You want to put them together.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like one thing too, and it's like, I get it if people don't agree, but I 100% will stand firm on this for the rest of the time that I ever cover wrestling or ever become a fan of wrestling. It's not, Triple H is not sitting here writing the most extravagant storylines. Tony Khan wasn't writing the most detailed storylines with Hangman and Kenny, or MJF and Wardlow, or MJF and CM Punk. It was just always something to continuously keep you like interested, where it's like, oh my God, it's finally,
Right. Yeah.
That's it. Simple as that.
There is one story. There is one story in WWE, and I'm going to cut you off real fast, and I'm going to mention it, and it's completely off topic here. But there is one storyline that I just would have never thought of that is so extravagant in my mind, and it's the Karrion Kross thing.
Oh yeah, but even that,
I'd have never thought of that. I'd have never thought of that.
So the cool thing about Karrion Kross was every time he was losing, you knew there was something about the way he was losing.
Yeah.
And it was something about the video packages. But it goes to show you, right? It's very extravagant. It's very detailed. It's very in-depth, right?
Yeah.
Now Karrion Kross will come back with AOP.
And he's just going to be a big deal.
It's going to feel like a big deal because they explain it to you, and it's continuity. And, this is why I say sometimes losing is not always a big deal. You can lose matches. It's just how you go about it. Drew McIntyre is losing a whole bunch of World Heavyweight Championship matches, but it led to this heel turn. It's leading to something, right?
Yeah.
And AEW was doing this for a long time, and then they kind of fell off the track with it. So, I mean, we can sit here and we can sit here and discuss back and forth like everything with every, hey, I like this story or I don't like this story. Right. Let's just make it clear. Just because something is something that you like or dislike doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. Right? What I like may not always be good to others, but I like the simple things. I'm watching on my ass for 2 hours of me literally watching and just trying to follow along. So sometimes when I don't get that continuity, I'm like, hey, I got to take a seat back.
Right. You got to take a step back for a minute. I get that. Continuity is so important in wrestling. It is, in fact, to me, it's the number one thing. I will forever say that. And like you said, sometimes we're going to agree. Sometimes we're going to disagree. But at the end of the day, you watch your own wrestling and you watch wrestling for what it is.
Yeah. I did want to give a little bit of a shout out to Trevor. He's been coming through on these streams on the regular. So Trevor, thank you. This was a comment that I found fascinating because Trevor says, I'll admit I haven't seen TNA since 2014 when AJ Styles left, but I'm going to watch Hard to Kill just to check it out again. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Trevor, is because of you, Billy. Yeah. You are somebody who recently are getting back into TNA.
Yep.
And the thing is, what I just kind of want to point out here, guys, is there's a lot of wrestling.
Yeah.
A lot. It's not easy to stay along with everything. So for me, I watch it all because it's my job.
Right.
I think the best thing you guys can do is watch what you enjoy, and then anything else you want to pay attention to, don't be afraid to use YouTube
Or
or
social
DVR,
media in general.
social media for sure. For me, I watch everything. That won't
And
change.
and and one thing I want to mention about this comment is the reason why Trevor is going to watch Hard to Kill. There's one simple answer to that. The reason why is the same exact reason why I'm going to watch Hard to Kill. Do you want to know why?
Sure.
Because Scott D'Amore made it feel important.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you create and bring back fans. And that's what Scott D'Amore has done. He has brought back the fans of TNA because, yes, I was a fan of AJ Styles. I watched back in like 06, 07, kind of like the Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle, that time Abyss, everything like that. But to say that Scott D'Amore did not make this feel important would be crazy. And he is about to bring in so many fans. Lapsed fans is what we'd call them. Do you remember all the CM Punk fans?
Yeah.
I genuinely feel like this is going to be huge for TNA, and I genuinely feel like this is going to be the time for them. Would you agree that
Yes.
this is the time for TNA?
Yes, but this is also why I say it's very important for TNA to come correct, right? You can't just put something out on TV just because you feel like doing it, right? We know Scott D'Amore is making some changes to the overall product and roster and stuff like that, and obviously you're changing the name, but you got to show people why we actually enjoy watching TNA. Because Trevor is doing something that a lot of people don't do on YouTube. Trevor's admitting he doesn't watch it.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who'll be like, oh, TNA sucks, man. Like they really they're terrible. And it's like, well, you didn't watch it since Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff burned it to the ground. You didn't watch it since, Billy Corgan was basically ruining the shit out of the company and John Garbuick and Dixie Carter. I did. I watched those times. So me,
was it hard for you? Like, was it really hard at that time to watch TNA?
Billy, let me tell you something, buddy.
Yeah.
I know my audience now doesn't know this because I've grown so much. There was a time period where I didn't cover WWE and I only covered TNA because that's how much I love TNA and I thought Vince McMahon sucked.
Okay.
And at that time in my life, it was just part-time YouTube.
Yeah.
But I was making money obviously from YouTube talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
And TNA significantly did less views than WWE, but I couldn't stand watching WWE. Like WWE had lost me as a fan. And I remember specifically when I would talk about TNA at the time, it was frustrating because it was kind of like what I see with AEW. Continuity might suck or the focus wasn't clearly there. Certain things like booking decisions were very odd. People winning where you're like, why would they win? Booking matches that were meaningless, whatever it may be. And it was so funny because back then I remember and I can't remember verbatim what I would say, but I remember covering it and just talking about like in TNA, it was they were going from, I think this was like 2016 or 2017. I'm probably wrong on the years, but I remember talking about TNA when the Global Force Wrestling thing happened.
I remember that.
And I remember they were trying so hard to get away from the stink that Impact had. And so they rebranded to Global Force Wrestling, and this whole thing became drama. Like people don't realize, like we talk about the AEW drama. I'm talking from personal experience. I saw the drama that would unfold. And I remember just watching it and being like, man, how do you have this really good roster
and just start completely fumbling it?
And you fumble it. No identity, losing your identity, losing the things that make you good. So when people ask me why I critique AEW the way I do, it's because I'm literally witnessing it. Maybe it's not the same extreme or it's not 100% identical, but I see a company losing identity and I'm like,
it's so funny because you bring up the Global Force Wrestling, and correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the colors like a green and blue?
Yeah. It was cool. No, it was cool. Global Force Wrestling in terms of the brand and stuff was cool, but it was like, I get why you're doing it, but it's not going to work. And that was at a time where I was like starting to watch WWE again. And I remember I was watching an episode of Raw.
Yeah.
I was obviously always watching NXT. Let me make that clear. I never went away from watching NXT from 2012 all the way till now. I always watched NXT. But I remember like I would watch TNA and then it became Global Force Wrestling. And I remember just watching and being like, this company's losing their identity. And the thing is, it looks cool, but they had a terrible TV deal. They had they had a great talent, but like the women's storylines were clearly better than everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
But then the talent that I also enjoy watching, I'm like, they're not doing anything eventful. It was bad, bro.
So can I ask you a serious question about it though?
Mhm.
What is the difference? So you're talking about the time where they rebranded from Global Force Wrestling. What makes this feel so different now? Why am I much more excited for TNA than I was maybe for Global Force Wrestling?
Yeah, different management. So I've been watching Anthem. This is a fantastic question, honestly. What makes it feel so different? And there's a huge difference. Scott D'Amore, I don't think will ever get the credit he deserves for what he's done with this company. Like, I genuinely believe Scott D'Amore and Ed Norholm, who is I believe he's the CEO or president of Anthem.
Okay.
Those the people that are running Impact, they have done a phenomenal job because, like I said, when Anthem came in, it was a little bit rocky at first. Scott
Yeah.
D'Amore comes in and he's literally just everything's on point. The way that they utilize talent. I remember times covering TNA back in the day where there was literally reports. I would talk about how there's talent not getting paid. There would be talent not getting paid on time or going backstage and not having catering or not having food or drinks and stuff. And it was like a terrible time for talent morale. And I seen Scott D'Amore and Anthem come in and they've not only changed the product from a creative standpoint and got it on track, but they've utilized talent better. It seems like there's a really good relationship between talent and management in that company. And I have, with my own very eyes, I did not see anything, but also you don't hear anything these days of issues with management and Impact. So when TNA became Global Force Wrestling, it looked like a desperate move. And here in 2024, going from Impact to TNA, it looks like, hey, we know that our product is good because the people who watch us enjoy us.
Right.
Now we got to make a business decision that's going to be a little bit easier for people to recognize us. And hopefully those people who remember TNA at one point will give us a chance.
Well, it seems like that's what's going to happen.
And when you factor in the part of, hey, we've been making good decisions for the last several years, but now we're going to increase our production, change the set.
Yeah.
These are perception-based things, right? You got to keep that in mind. Some of these fans will be like, "Oh, yeah, I could watch this now."
Yeah, me and Trevor are a prime example of people who are actually this is in real time happening to,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm one of those people myself. I am a person who is going back to TNA because I'm excited for the rebrand. I mentioned it on Twitter earlier. I posted, I said, I'm very excited for this.
Yeah.
The reason why is because they've made it feel just, it feels right. You know what I mean? It feels like I'm about to watch an X Division match. And the X Division match means something, right? What was it? The Ultimate X?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ultimate X. That I remember that was one thing that I knew TNA for. I don't know if they're gonna do the 6-sided ring or not.
It doesn't sound like it. That could always change, but it
That
doesn't
breaks
sound
my
like
heart a little bit
it. Yeah.
because that's really what I knew TNA for, and I love the 6-sided ring, and I love the idea of TNA having that ring. I feel like that ring just it really set the tone for TNA. So I'm interested to see if they are going to do it or not. But I guess we'll see.
It made them different for sure. I
Yeah.
hope I answered your question in a way that makes logical sense
You
as to
did.
why it's different.
You did.
But I will tell you one thing that also doesn't get a lot of credit, and it sucks that I have to say this, but AEW coming around, I've told you this before, I think, but AEW coming around has definitely hurt TNA and
See,
MLW. And
you've been a big sayer of this,
yeah,
and why?
the production company, Kevin Soley TV Productions, they left Impact, went to AEW. Obviously, a lot of producers left TNA, or well, a lot of wrestlers became producers in WWE or AEW.
Now, I don't mean to ask you too many questions,
Yeah.
but does it affect you a certain way that this has happened? Like, how do you personally feel about it?
How I personally feel is I understand that it's business.
Yeah. Okay.
And as somebody who owns a business, you got to make tough decisions and things like that. But imagine I'm watching Ethan Page, for example. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but Ethan Page and Josh Alexander, the North, an amazing tag
I
team.
remember. Yeah.
And I remember watching that tag team being like, they're one of the best tag teams Like I can't. There's a lot of dream matches I would watch between them and guys in WWE and stuff. And then I remember they go solo, and Ethan Page goes to AEW or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is a guy who I enjoyed watching every week, and now he doesn't have that same.
And you don't have that same feeling towards
So
them.
I would get upset when I would see talent leave a company and go to another company and be less than what they were. So, and it's not just a TNA thing, but it's WWE and AEW. Like
Yeah.
if CM Punk went to WWE, which obviously this is a huge extreme, but if CM Punk went to WWE and looked worse than AEW, I would be pissed as a
Yeah,
CM
there'd be a
Punk
gripe
fan.
to it. There would be a definite gripe.
And like that's where I get frustrated where I'm like Andrade with Zelina was far greater than anything that Andrade did in AEW.
Yeah.
Or Malachi Black in NXT versus Malachi Black in AEW. It's like when I watch my favorites go to another company and I don't think they're being utilized correctly.
That was my whole thing about Adam Cole.
So it's exactly. Yeah. It's like my enjoyment for that potential kind of goes downhill. So it doesn't affect me when AEW came around and it hurt TNA. It doesn't impact me that way. But my point that I'm trying to make is that with AEW existing, it hurt the smaller companies. And there's obviously a lot of upside to AEW being around, but this is also like when you do the partnership with TNA, the AEW loyalists, they'll always get pissed when I say this, but like, I don't think that helped TNA in the slightest. So at the end of the day, I feel like this is one of the reasons why I want TNA to win. Will it stop me from criticizing TNA? Absolutely not. But I want TNA to do well because look at the industry as a whole. So, and that's why too, by the way, if it was John Garbuick and Dixie Carter running Impact,
That
like
Dixie Carter stuff was horrible. I remember that.
Dixie Carter wasn't even as bad as a lot of people would say, but Dixie Carter brought the wrong people in.
She brought like Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, didn't she?
She brought them in. She brought in John Garbuick. John Garbuick wasn't that. He was not helpful at all in their situation.
The idea of bringing Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan back in is
but
crazy.
Scott D'Amore brought in Gail Kim. He utilizes Gail Kim. He utilized Mickie James.
I love Gail Kim.
You know, there was a very interesting thing that was happening with TNA with the people that they were utilizing in terms of veterans. And then you know, not to fuck it, I'll just say it. Jimmy Jacobs, when he was in Impact, you can tell like there would be times I'd be watching on TV and I'd be like, oh, that looks like a Jimmy Jacobs thing because it was like a WWE thing.
You could tell.
And then I noticed it in AEW. So I'm like, that's how I know it's Jimmy Jacobs. And like Jimmy Jacobs leaving Impact, what happens? They immediately got back on track. So there's certain things I've noticed because that's how much of an avid viewer that I am.
Yeah.
But obviously I hope for the best in this industry. And you asked me like, what does it do for me personally? Yeah. From a booking standpoint, it just comes down to I don't think they've done well with former talent from TNA.
That's fair.
But the same can't be said for MLW, right? MJF came from MLW and he went to AEW and he's a big deal.
Amazing.
So
yeah.
It is what it is. We did get another super chat from Shane Davies for $10. He says, I think this is TNA's year. They finally seem to have found their footing. They're not competing with anyone, just focusing on making a quality product. What do you guys think? Do AEW and WWE need the same? So I'm going to ask you, Billy.
Yeah.
Because he says, do AEW and WWE need the same? When you watch WWE's product, do you feel like they're reactionary to AEW?
No, in fact, I think it's the exact opposite. I think AEW is the reactionary one. At least they've shown me. They've shown me that they're reactionary to the WWE, to where WWE is. WWE lives in their own land. Don't let things be misconstrued. WWE lives on their own planet. They're just now bringing in these rumors with AJPW and TNA to where they work together. No, WWE has always looked at themselves like a monopoly. So people talked about like the Wednesday Night Wars, and you remember a time of that? It was never real. It was made up by the fans.
Yeah. I ask because I agree that I think WWE is just super laser focused on their product. I don't think they might be paying attention to what other companies do, but I do believe they're fully focused.
Yeah.
I think TNA is the same. I think TNA is hyper focused on
TNA
themselves.
Locked in.
I think they're both locked in. I think AEW for a minute was worried about everything else and trying to.
Well, that's half the reason why AEW kind of got ruined for me. I'm going to sit here. I'll say it. I don't care. That was half the reason AEW it got ruined. you care too much about what's going on outside of your company,
Yeah.
right? And you've shown me time and time and time again that you care so much about what's going on outside of the company that now I feel like the drama in everything that goes on backstage in your company and all of that no longer it no longer adds substance. I don't care anymore for the actual product itself, and that's how I feel AEW and how they kind of hit themselves in the foot a little bit. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Shane, I think this is the year that TNA really impresses people. I really do. Like I said, the last few years of good creative, I mean, and this never gets brought up, and obviously they're no longer together, but Ortiz and Santana, what they did in TNA Impact was cinema. And they came to AEW and they never won the tag team championship belts. And now that won't happen because they broke up. But just another example of talent that came from TNA where they were booked so well and come to AEW, and that wasn't necessarily the case. You know, they had to deal with the inner circle bullshit. But I feel like TNA, even when they lose talent for some reason, and God bless them, dude. I don't know how Scott D'Amore does it because he does lose a lot of talent to the bigger companies. He always figures out a way to stay on track and get laser focused.
This is very Paul Heyman-esque.
Sure.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
But that's why I feel like it's going to be a fun year. And let me just be pretty clear. I've been, like I said, I really enjoyed tonight's AEW episode. I think 2024, barring any sort of unforeseen or I guess foreseen changes, right?
Yeah.
TV deals and stuff like that could be a big indicator of some major changes
of where we're going to be heading this year.
But I think 2024 will be the golden year for AEW, WWE, TNA, and I'm going to throw another one in the list that I'm actually quite shocked to say, but MLW.
I kind of figured that was going to be one that you said.
I think all four companies are going to have a massive year. All four of them being televised products. I think it's going to be a big one. Thank you, Shane, for the super chat. DJ dropped another one. He says Knockouts Live should happen with TNA. Knockouts Live should happen with TNA and WWE. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. There's always a maybe.
Definitely. Thank you for the super chat, bro. We got another one from Scripps for $2. Let's not forget the Jarrett's ruined TNA as well.
Ooh,
yeah, the Jarrett's did.
They did.
I mean, if you go back into the early days of TNA,
because Jeff Jarrett started TNA, and he brought his own company down, or was it Jeff Jarrett? It was the family, right? Not Jeff Jarrett himself. It was the family.
It's the Jarrett family. I mean, you know, money here and there and whatever.
Right,
and, right. They sell it to Panda Energy or whatever it was. I think that was Dixie Carter's company's name, Panda Energy.
Because they ended up on Spike, didn't they?
Yeah, first it was pay-per-view only. Their shows were weekly, like pay-per-view, and then they
were probably horrible.
No, that was great. NWA TNA times were sick. Sonny Siaki, I miss that guy. He was like the Rock knockoff, which is probably not. Yeah, I mean he was a Rock. He was a knockoff of the Rock. But Panda Energy, yeah, they so they purchased in 2002. They purchased a controlling interest of 72% from founder and CEO Jerry Jarrett.
Was Christian in TNA in 2002? I feel like he was.
I don't think it was 2002. I want to say it was like 2004, 2005. Let me see. 2004, 2005.
Because he won the NWA title.
Christian Cage TNA debut. 2005 Genesis, yeah.
2005 Genesis?
I knew it, yeah.
Wow.
So they basically did pay-per-views initially. Then they eventually got a TV deal. They were on Fox Sports. In Michigan, it was Fox Sports Detroit.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know how it was like because it was syndicated like Fox Sports. Their TV always confused me, but it was like Fox Sports 1 or Fox Sports Detroit, whatever it was. And then they eventually went to Spike. And then they launched.
That's what I remember them for is the Spike's time.
Yeah. See, before the Spike time, I liked them. They went to Spike. It was okay. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't, whatever.
Right.
Everything went downhill.
Going to Spike.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll tell you right off the rip. Spike was Now it's Paramount Network, but Spike's always been owned by Viacom. So,
Yeah.
you know, fuck it, I'm gonna just say it. There's a big chance that tomorrow Warner Brothers and Paramount announces their merger. So I don't know.
You can't say shit like that.
All I said was there's a good chance that it could be announced tomorrow.
Okay.
And if it gets announced tomorrow, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens because Paramount and WBD both have experience with wrestling. There's, TV talks for WWE, there's TV talks for AEW,
Right.
you got Raw and AEW.
Do you think there's
I
a
mean,
chance that these two, AEW and WWE, could live on the same network?
hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no, not
Wow.
possible. Triple H ain't gonna let that happen. Nick Khan ain't gonna let that happen.
Okay.
You guys hate Triple H booking. Just understand that Nick Khan is the reason why. Like Nick Khan's the one who wants to fuck everybody else up. Nick Khan
He's
is
the competitor.
he's a sports agent, bro.
Yeah.
Like he knows he's a master. He's a master negotiator. He knows what he's doing. Nick Khan, if it wasn't for Nick Khan, Triple H had this vision of, I want to go global. Nick Khan says, okay, I'll help you. Can't do that under Vince, but with Endeavor, and Endeavor loves Nick Khan and Triple H, they say, okay, let's do it. We're going to make money. Nick Khan wants to do more international shows. Nick Khan wants to do the NIL program. Nick Khan wants to go after AEW, TNA.
So they're just going to fit it to both of their wants.
Nick Khan is more, I would guess, speculating here, I would guess that Nick Khan and Triple H are more on page than Triple H and Vince McMahon ever were.
Absolutely.
And Nick Khan is more on the same page with Endeavor because Endeavor is a company that wants to make money, and they're like, well, Nick Khan is making us money and Triple H are making us money. Look, Vince McMahon doesn't get pulled from creative from his own company. If Vince McMahon was
right,
if they were making the amount of money that Vince, if Vince was responsible for it, they would have been like, okay,
yeah,
Vince,
we'll leave him here.
Because remember that announcement? It was, oh, Vince McMahon, we trust Vince. We can't do this without him.
I remember the whole sit down and everything.
Yeah. They saw Triple H and Nick Khan, and they were like, "Fuck Vince McMahon, get him out of here." Like
right.
that's just kind of how it is, and I can't blame them because I remember like pre Triple H, and this is probably why I was always a bigger fan, especially like in 2012, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, I like WWE here and there, like the main roster stuff. There was some good stuff. But I was always an NXT fan, and that was because of the way Triple H wrote TV. So it's not shocking when you go throughout time and be like, wow, Ango's a WWE hater. Yeah, but you got fucking Roman Reigns eating dog shit on TV.
Oh, that was
dog food, dog shit.
Yeah.
It's the same shit. But I remember that. And then I see Triple H doing all of these long burn storylines, Bray Wyatt stuff, and now look at the Karrion Kross stuff. And I'm patient, right? I'm a patient guy, as I said earlier. Right. I watch every week, and I just try to see the continuity. Triple H brings that to me. Vince McMahon says, "Here you go." That's it. Yeah. So that's why it's a very fun time. That's why I said 2024 is going to be a massive year for.
I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be great for wrestling in general.
But don't let it slip under the rug. What I said about Warner Bros. And Paramount. If it happens, I think it gets announced tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm going to be looking at that.
I could be wrong. I mean, I haven't been briefed on anything. It's just a wild prediction that I'm making.
You're just throwing out there.
I'm just kind of throwing it out there that there is some talk about Warner Bros. And a merger happening. Now, it would make a lot of sense for them to go with Paramount because both companies are losing subscriptions on their streaming services, their content, stuff like that. I could always see Comcast merging with Warner Bros., bringing them
That
in.
was going to be my next question is, do you think that another company could actually merge with
100%?
Yeah. Okay.
And I think we probably find out as soon as tomorrow, maybe not,
right.
But
we gonna see.
But I would say it's definitely important to pay attention to because you got AEW and WWE trying to get TV deals, and I think for both companies, Paramount or Warner, like they're great partners for it, but this is why it's so important for AEW to get that TV deal. And it's important for them to get a big one because this talent isn't cheap. Deonna Purrazzo isn't cheap. Mercedes Varnado is not cheap. These talent are not cheap, and you want to pay these people, you got to make money. Tony Khan's rich, but you get that big TV deal, and now you're actually profitable. So, yeah.
I guess we'll see over time.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens tomorrow now.
And don't forget, WWE has a major announcement, which I'm thinking tomorrow night would be fun to do a live stream at night.
Yeah.
TNA and AEW and WWE.
If you just want to come on here and just have a ramble.
Just ramble. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could do that. I think we could possibly do that. But I mean, looking ahead, right?
Yeah.
Looking ahead. Um, do we believe that AEW is going to fix some of their problems? Do you think so? Do you think that all these problems that we see? I should let me reintroduce this question. Looking at the problems in AEW and what the IWC has criticized them for, do you think now, with seeing people like the Private Party pop back up, Deonna Purrazzo, do you think you could see AEW fixing the criticism that they've gotten?
So unfortunately, all my praise that I gave today to
Yeah,
AEW ends right there.
really.
I've done this too many times where I've praised AEW for a good episode and it feels good and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I will not do that and say change is coming. I'm hoping it is, but there's been a couple times since 2021, 2022, and 2023 where I've gotten excited about an episode and then the next week I'm like, what the fuck? So unfortunately, I cannot sit here and promise anything. However, what I will say is that I am optimistic and
okay.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
I agree to an extent. I am optimistic about AEW and where they're going because I do feel like because a 6 out of 10, right, that I rated them earlier is much better than the 4 out of 10 I might have rated them a couple weeks ago.
The way to look at it too is change doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely.
And I'm always cognizant of that. I think that's also really important to mention. Strangely enough, I kind of felt like tonight's Dynamite felt like what a typical Raw or SmackDown after Mania felt like.
Absolutely.
So, personally speaking, I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful, but it's not easy for me to put all my trust in AEW, considering that there's a lot that could happen with their TV deal. If they lose their TV deal, that hurts them. That can get them off track. And also, unfortunately, right now, I know it's not being discussed, but I'm going to just throw it out there because it is important. There is a lot of drama surrounding AEW as of late and some people that work backstage. AEW has yet to comment on the Chris Jericho stuff.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho hasn't been talking about it. These are allegations that have been made.
Yeah.
These all play into effect, right? Like anything with AEW can get AEW off track. So we got to see how they handle things. We got to see how they go consistently.
That's been the problem with them is just a lot of bad things surround them.
And I'll tell you too. I was optimistic for Dynamite. I was pretty happy with Dynamite tonight, obviously.
Yeah.
But we have Rampage and Collision. The first 4 or 5 episodes of Collision were extremely awesome, and I stopped caring about Collision.
There's a reason why they were awesome.
The first 4 episodes of ROH when they launched on the Watch ROH app were really awesome.
No.
And then it fell apart. The first 4 episodes were awesome. Storytelling.
I did not care.
Yeah. See, the thing is, though, I care about storytelling. I have a very specific thing I look for. So my point that I'm making is I can't just sit here and be like, oh, it's changing. But I will say I feel like AEW restored the feeling a little bit today.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
We did get a super chat from Jana.
Okay.
I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Me too, man, because you almost you botched it yesterday too, and I remember.
What did I say? Yana,
I think you said.
Jana.
Yeah.
I always feel so bad, man, because I
yeah, I'm calling you out, man.
Damn, bro.
Yeah,
now, I tried to pronunciate things correctly, but unfortunately sometimes.
I think I'm gonna go with Jana. I could be
Jana.
wrong.
Your guess is Jana. My guess is Yana.
Okay. All right.
Or maybe it's
So drop it in the chat so we could see it because I want to know.
Yeah, we did get a super chat.
All right, go ahead.
We got to read it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we're going to sit here for hours trying to figure out how to pronounce the name. This is literally Jana. Nice.
Yeah.
Jana.
Yeah.
So initially I'd been saying it right.
Right. Initially.
Kind of. Well, yesterday I said it wrong. Today I said it right.
Right.
Nice. See how easy it is to say Ango. And you see how easy it is to say Billy.
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah.
Fun. Jana says, why do you think TNA opened up more seats for Hard to Kill even though they haven't sold out what they had yet? TNA does this, which is fantastic. They do this. It's a great strategy for 2 reasons. I think 1, they're going to have some major announcements. I think they're going to announce some stuff.
They're going to get that place rocking.
They're selling tickets, but they didn't sell out TNA never sells out in the beginning stage. I've gone to several shows in the past year, and I remember like just talking to people who were buying tickets. A lot of people buy their tickets last minute because they want to see what's going to be there first.
That's a fair thing to do.
100%. I'm one of those people that buy my tickets last minute for anything.
Yeah. Yes,
I never plan ahead of time.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know personally.
Yeah. I buy my tickets last minute. I don't if I go on vacation, it's last minute. If I go to a wrestling show, it's last minute. If I go to a concert, it's last minute. Personally speaking, I feel like life is so crazy and chaotic at times that like it's hard to plan ahead. So that's why I am the way I am. But why do I think TNA opened up more seats for Hard to Kill? I think they got some big stuff planned. Plus, you know, they got some surprises, and
I mean, they're making it very known.
Tickets are moving.
So are they moving?
Not? Yeah, no, their tickets are moving. They're gonna sell it out.
You think they'll sell it out? It'll be a last minute thing, but yeah.
How big they do every time though?
How big is the Palms?
2,500.
See, that's a fair. They'll sell that out. They'll sell that out, no problem. I think the buzz enough will sell it out. How many seats originally were there? Do you know?
At the arena?
Like, how many did they have open? Because if they've opened up more seats.
They opened up originally, I want to say full capacity. Like when they first put it out there, like anybody else, full capacity.
Okay.
Then they quickly changed it to like the production thing.
Okay.
Which I think was like 1,100. And at that point in time, I haven't looked at WrestleTix or whatever, but I think it was at like 700 or 800.
Okay.
And then that was like the last time I looked at it. So I think they just opened it up today. So I'm sure it's going to change to a certain extent.
Yeah. This is, it's about to get interesting. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I think TNA will sell it out. That's just my personal thought on it. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah. Jonna, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Appreciate it. Guys, we have a few minutes left. I want to read something, but if you guys have any super chats or membership shout outs or super thanks or super stickers, anything like that,
get them things in.
Let me see something.
What you got going on over there, man? What you about to read to us?
I found a very interesting tweet, and I wanted to read this. It's from Colby PW, who is a writer and editor for Fightful and SE Scoops, and I think bodyslam.net.
Reliable.
This is me just first glance. I'm going to read it to you guys. He says, Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks news leaking that she had talks with WWE just for them to fall out, then have reports that she's coming to AEW imminently just for it to not happen. Now, her New Japan Pro Wrestling theme has been disabled on Apple Music, which usually happens when WWE signs someone. Is exactly the reason why she's the superstar she claims to be and wants to be paid as. Everyone in the IWC is talking about her and arguing about where she should go, and it's amazing. So here's the thing. First of all, she is a superstar. I don't know why people don't think so.
Yeah.
First and foremost. The theme song thing is typically what happens when somebody goes. When their theme gets disabled, that's like the thing. I don't see why AEW would have her New Japan theme disabled, because AEW would probably use the same theme.
Right? Because they're not going to use the one from WWE.
And AEW, even if they signed her, she would be able to work New Japan. That would be
right, exactly, because they're partners. So listen, there was actually somebody in your Discord back around Survivor Series, right, kind of before the CM Punk thing happened.
Yeah.
I forget exactly who it was, and I apologize if you're watching this live and I can't source you 100%, but they had made a post about CM Punk's song getting remastered.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, you know.
It means everything, though, because of licensing.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I hear him come out to the remastered version, I'm like, oh my God, and my mind was blown. So
it happened with Bray as well.
Yes, it did. And my mind was just boggled when I seen this. And I was like, yo, they were right. And I could not believe what I was looking at. I really couldn't.
This is, I mean, the Sasha Banks thing is so fascinating because it's like I've been saying in all my videos where I cover this news. I say, look, we've seen too many times where, here's the thing, right? This is it's a trend in the way the reporting works.
Yeah.
Something I noticed. I knew Deonna Purrazzo was coming to AEW.
Yeah, I mean, we
Before
all kind of felt that.
I knew before even the reports came out. I knew Deonna was going to AEW.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for Deonna to go back to the company. Forget about anything other than just logic. It doesn't make sense for her to go back to the company that like literally didn't utilize her
At all. AEW was going to be the best fit for her.
Yeah, it just made sense, right?
Yeah.
But the way it was presented when Deonna Purrazzo was, nobody leaked Deonna Purrazzo debuting with AEW. Fightful dropped a report that said Deonna Purrazzo's had talks with AEW and something about along the lines of AEW have had talks with her. Like it was something. I don't want to make Fightful look bad. So let me grab the tweet. I don't want to like misquote them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deonna Purrazzo has had talks with All Elite Wrestling. Fightful Select can confirm. So that was the exact verbiage. And
so they never really leaked it.
Yeah, so nobody leaked her return, but it was same day as Dynamite. This happened with Claudio. This happens with everybody. Right. When somebody gets, it's never, they're going to debut at this time, but they're having talks. With the verbiage that was used for Mercedes, the sources in WWE believe that she will be showing up somewhere else imminently. That was some of the verbiage that was used.
They protect WWE.
It's not protecting. It has nothing to do with bias.
No, you don't think so?
Fightful is not playing a game. I'm very aware of what's happening.
Okay.
If WWE sources told them that Sasha's had talks with AEW or she's going to AEW, I am not saying for 1 second that she's not going to AEW. But what I'm saying is if WWE wanted to throw off anybody from the fans, they would leak a fake story
like this.
Yeah. They would because WWE, that's how you get people thrown off. Like,
yeah, every time I think of this, I run back to the CM Punk thing and how they did that, right? Because they made it seem as if they never had spoke at all, which I think is, or if they did talk, it was very small talk, and then it just kind of faded away. You know what I mean? So they kept that one close to the brim. And like you said, almost leaked out a fake story because obviously it was a fake story at some point. Because I think like a week prior, they said that they had only spoken once and then talks diminished. But talks were higher than they had ever been a week before because that's when it happened.
I don't believe any reports when it comes to WWE or AEW.
Yeah.
I'm very careful about that because if I was AEW, if I was WWE, I would lie.
Yeah, because it's so simple to lie.
And I'm trying to swerve people,
Right.
If I want it out there, at the end of the day, it's a media thing. And I can say this, like, if they want it out there bad enough, they'll make it very clear that they want it out. And if they don't want it, they will try to swerve you. And we saw this a lot in wrestling. It's not,
and it's in the past couple years, it's definitely happened like that.
And to the credit of Fightful and like to their defense, not that they need it, but I've seen a lot of people say, oh, like Sean is not accurate or Sean is bullshitting people or whatever it may be.
I see a lot of Sean hate.
But here's the thing, like, and it's not my job to defend people or whatever, but like I haven't seen Sean mislead anybody. He literally said CM Punk, they did not have talks with CM Punk. And like when you hear about Triple H and what he says at the press conference, like it adds up to what Sean was reporting. Sean never said CM Punk is never coming back. He never said CM Punk is not there.
No.
But people will say that because they'll put words in the mouth or whatever. So I feel like with wrestling, the Sasha Banks thing is very possible.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting. And then to add a little cherry on top, WWE.com just changed her profile a few hours ago. So just kind of throwing that out there. I think it's a very intriguing time period to be a fan of wrestling.
I'd agree.
And I think my theory earlier was a lot funner with Sasha going back to TNA, going to TNA.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me being a fan of wrestling and being a fan of TNA and hoping that they secure a top free agent.
Right, and they can get that person.
But Mercedes is not in AEW as of this time. And she could be. I think she could be. It's not unrealistic whatsoever.
Yeah, she's nowhere right now.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. My man.
What a night. What a night.
What a night.
We had a lot to talk about tonight. We
did
2 hours, man.
Yeah, that was something, wasn't it? I hope everybody here enjoyed it.
I love it, man. I appreciate everybody who came through and dropped super chats and stuff like that. If you haven't subscribed to Billy, you probably should.
You guys are awesome because a lot of them have. And I just want to say that they're awesome.
I think they're awesome too, man. To be honest with you, I think it's very easy within this climate of being a creator. Unfortunately, there could be a lot of people that are just assholes for no reason.
Yeah,
whatever.
No, and I don't.
But this is the best.
That.
This is the best fucking community on YouTube. I don't.
And I'm so happy that I even get a little glimpse of it. You could tell this community is awesome. Everybody's very level-headed, and I really appreciate that. And they've made me feel very welcomed here.
I love these conversations.
Absolutely,
and I love how the 2 things that people have been picking up on, which by the way, where was it? Miro TV says Billy and Angle are the bromans. That's funny. I love how like every stream I typically find a comment of somebody telling you who you look like.
Yeah.
And I also love when somebody makes fun of me for saying I love whatever.
I love. You want to know who I love?
Who?
Nikita Lyons.
Brother, man.
She's great.
Guys, this is the time where we end the stream. Billy's gonna get us in trouble. Billy's gonna get us in trouble.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. Trevor, Joshua, Anthony, Renee, Justin, Mike, everybody, George or Jorge. Hopefully I said that right. King David. I see all the love in the chat too. Thank you guys all. Thank you to everybody who dropped a super chat, became new members. Very, very fun time. I'm going to learn how I can gift memberships because I want to hook you guys up this week.
That's so cool.
Oh, Cedric. No, Cedric, I got to take that off. You're going to get us in trouble, dude. Dude. That's crazy.
Yeah. I was just talking about pro wrestling. That's all.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay, guys, oh my God. All right, that's the cue. Can't even put these comments on the chat. You guys are crazy, reckless.
Oh
God.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, it's gonna be fun reviewing NXT when we got to talk about Tiffany Stratton working on the farm. It's gonna be fun. Good times.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Fucking where's the GIF for the horny police? God, you guys are reckless. All right. Thank you all for stopping by. Appreciate it. What a fun night. We will probably be back maybe tomorrow. We'll figure out tomorrow. Yeah. It's hard because TNA isn't live tomorrow or anything like that. But maybe we'll figure something out.
Right.
But I appreciate you.
There. Go ahead.
I can't look at the chat no more. Anyways, appreciate y'all. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you guys tomorrow, maybe, or Friday, or Saturday, whatever it may be. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.